team. Thank you so much for being here today.
Great. Thank you so much, Kate, for that warm introduction. And thank you, Karen, for getting us organized as always and being such a great collaborator. We are really excited to be here today to talk with you. You'll be hearing from 3 out of the 4 of us about the work that we have been doing. I just want to highlight, we'll be sharing lots of tools. But if you go ahead to the next slide there, you will see um, that all of the information, June, can you advance the slides? Thanks, and maybe one more. All of the information and the toolkits in particular, the national toolkit and the Minnesota toolkit are housed on the CARLA website. So if you kind of lose the link, you can always find them there. So what are we going to do in the next 45 minutes to an hour or so? We'll be talking a little bit about the context of this project, the need that launched it, and then we want to share pieces of the Minnesota toolkit, the national toolkit, and some updates and kind of the latest additions. We're excited to share some new things we've developed in the last few months, and then we'll close with some opportunities for more engagement and more input from all of you. So first things first here, I know a few of you, but not many of you, certainly not all of you, and we'd like to get a little interaction going here. Could you put in the chat a 1 to 5 based on your familiarity with the seal? So 1 is, like what's the Seal of Biliteracy? 2, I've heard of it, I'm not really sure. 3, I understand it generally. 4, I've supported it. And 5, I could teach others. All righty. Wow, you guys are fast. We are all over the place. Everybody has heard of it. We've got a few 3s, quite a few 3s, a few 4s, 4.5. All right. And a 5 from Mia. Great. So that helps us kind of manage our time here a little bit. As a recap, then, for many of you, and I can see lots of you know this already, State Seals of Biliteracy are official recognitions of for high school graduates in the US who have demonstrated high levels of proficiency in a language other than in English, and in many cases in English as well. So these are really can be powerful recognitions of students' linguistic and intercultural competence. And there are ideas that this is of value both for the student's individual sense of self and worth, but also that there are material benefits related to jobs and college applications and so forth. One of the pieces, of course, that we will be highlighting, and I imagine many of you are aware, is that these vary by state, right? The exact rules, it's hard to talk generally about this because there's a lot of variation by state. Next little quiz here. How many states award the Seal of Biliteracy? What do you think? Put your answer in the chat. 40, 48, 50, all 50, 45, 43, 36. I love it. 27. All righty. So many of you got it on the nose. This is a quickly changing landscape. The answer is all states. As of December of last year, every single state has a form of an approved state seal. So we started in California. That's where we had the very first seal program. And for about a decade, we watched this map from the Seal of Biliteracy website. That's a different website, not ours, was monitoring this very closely. And now we're at 100%. So great, we're done. Problem solved, right? We've got this legislation everywhere in the country. That's a joke. Okay. Of course, there are still lots of problems. So last little quiz item here in the chat. Could you list the equity and access challenges you might have encountered as a professional, or maybe those that you have heard about with respect to developing the seal, implementing the seal, access to the seal? I'll give everybody about a minute here to reflect and put one or two. Yeah. Access to practice and practice tests, I think, information for families, connections with ELs, absolutely. Lots of challenges for heritage language speakers, a class, a test, um, uneven access for less commonly taught languages. Not all schools host the tests. Absolutely. Um, absolutely. So you guys named a lot of these items already that have been documented in the literature. As you see in the next slide, one of the biggest challenges is that establishment of programs within districts or schools is voluntary, right? It is unfunded and highly local, right? So we have state legislation, but it's largely up to districts and or school districts, sometimes individual language teachers, to develop and implement these programs. So it's super variable. As many of you named, access to assessments is uneven, sometimes limited to AP exams. I didn't see this in the chat, but Kristen Davin really highlighted this in her talk last month, that awarding college credit can be very complicated. It varies by state and within institutions, and is oftentimes challenging for students. And as many of you named at the outset, support for lictals and heritage languages is limited, and there is, I think it's safe to say, a bias towards traditional, commonly taught languages and towards school-based language and academic skills. So all of these problems were part of what drove this project. Within Minnesota, these are gaps that we identified here, and Ayumi has been working on for some time. We know in our state, which has a pretty progressive policy, a pretty strong policy, and a pretty relatively early adopter, only about 3% of students earn a seal, right? So that is still a pretty small piece of the pie. So that's about 3,000, close to 4,000 students. Put differently, only about 10% of our school districts have a SEAL program in place. Most of those are working with Spanish, and awardees are Spanish speakers or Spanish learners. And most of these are in suburban districts. And that really points to an equity issue, because we know our linguistically diverse students that are likely to live in, more likely to live in urban contexts, and our rural students are also underserved. We see similar things at the national level, is evident in the next slide. There are documented gaps about who knows about the program, and who's accessing it, the languages, as I noted, the support system within school districts, and in particular, a lack of resources for lictals. So in a nutshell, another way of putting all of the information I just highlighted in those two slides, the genesis of this project is, oh my gosh, everybody is so busy trying to get their programs off the ground. We don't really have even time or to collaborate, and we were all inventing the wheel again and again, right? How can we work more effectively, efficiently? How can we collaborate? And how can we at CARLA support the work that so many of our colleagues are doing on the ground? So that is what drove this project. And here you see our team. We have been supported by an awesome team of graduate students, one of whom is here today, and also Dran Aziz, Thi Nguyen, and Andrew Fiegen, who is still working on the project. So I'm going to hand things over to Ayumi, who's going to get into the specifics of what we have been up to for the last few years. Ayumi, over to you.
Thank you, Kendall. So the first year, we focused on the Minnesota State, and then we started with needs analysis. We reviewed the district web pages and then surveyed educators and then hosted focus groups so that we could learn about how the implementation was going at the local level and identify the gap and then needed areas of support. So through the need analysis, we identified those areas that is listed on the slide. More promotion materials and information about the assessment so that educators or teachers and administrators could select, which assessment you use. Oftentimes, lots of folks who are implementing didn't have a background around language proficiency assessments that's aligned with ACTFO's proficiency guidelines. And we also another area was that preparing students for the assessment, like Kendall said earlier, particularly in the less commonly taught languages areas. So based on what we found, we defined deliverables, our goals. We wanted to develop a toolkit through the website form, and we wanted to be those materials were adaptable and multilingual and easy to access, and also the information about practice tests and all the technical things around implementation. And we also wanted it to be equity centered. Next slide, please. So in terms of tools, we decided to use Google Sci and then Canva. And then again, aims of using this tool were the comprehensive, accessible, multilingual, visually appealing, and then responsive to the needs of different groups. Next slide, please. So as you can see here, we've streamlined our information in ways that respond to the needs of our students and then the educators and then the families. So I think the link was probably put in the chat, but for the students, we focused on the resources that help them learn about what the seal is about and how they can improve their readiness for the assessment. For the educators, we focused on the knowledge and then strategies. Actually, June, we're not there yet. Sorry. If you could go back one more. So for the educators, we focused on the knowledge and the strategies to implement the SEALS program at their schools and the school district. And then for the families, we focused on helping parents and then guardians to grow awareness of the program. Next slide, please. So this is some examples that we developed for students. We made a lot of materials, but I want to just highlight the two items here. One that you see is the kind of a proficiency description poster. It's titled as Are You Ready poster, and it's a quick description of what students need to be able to do well on the proficiency test. And then the second visual you see is a little more detailed description of each level of proficiency range, so that, gives some ideas for students. And something like that, if you are, learning a language through instruction at schools, there are lots of supports around that. There's a teachers there, but for many multilingual learners who didn't really have that kind of opportunity, there weren't really not much available for them. So we developed those resources. And then next slide, we are showing some of the resources we developed for administrators and educators. One thing I'm highlighting here is the quick start guideline. So something like that is very helpful for someone particularly who are really starting from scratch and who may not have the background of, language education and ACTFO proficiency guidelines and then proficiency assessments that's available. So you can see there, we developed a chart, test options by language, test comparison overview that is comparing from assessment to assessment from lenses of like how much it's cost and what kind of a technology requirements are there, how the platform works, and each company or each testing is very different. So that can be overwhelming to figure that out on your own. So we made a chart like that. And the next slide. We also, so this is a translation, yes. So we also translated, so this is a Minnesota specific site, and originally we translated into 7 languages to help support the multilingual families. So you can see that translated poster, that's Amharic. And then also for videos are translated in each of these languages accessible online. The next slide, please. So, all of our materials, most of them are customizable and then shareable, so such as posters. So what you are seeing on the screen is the poster in Vietnamese, and then you can download it, and then you can put your information according to your needs. Next slide, please. Now we have a Seal Scavenger Challenge. So I believe you have access to the Minnesota Seals Toolkit website, because I think somebody put that in the chat earlier. So here's a question for you, and then we will probably take like 30 seconds or so if you can find it, or maybe some of you know the answer. So the intermediate high descriptions are shown on the screen. And then the question is, which Minnesota Bilingual Seal Award would this student qualify for? Which Minnesota Bilingual Seal Award would this student qualify for? So if you find the answer from that toolkit, just to put that in. Okay, I'm studying seeing the answer. Yes, so Minnesota has 3 levels of awards, and then the intermediate high is called gold seal. And then one higher is advanced low, which is platinum. So let's move on. Now I'm gonna switch in a gear a little bit, and then I'm gonna talk about the National Seal Toolkit website we mentioned earlier. So now what we wanna know is how familiar you are, basically. So if you just heard of it, wow, is there such a thing exists? You put A, and then if you knew about that, then you put B. And then if you are very familiar and you use it and you love it, put C. This audience is very engaging. They're putting answers right away.
They are fast and lots of A's.
Fast too. Lots of A, brand new. Oh, I'm glad that you're here to learn about it so that you can start using it in your own context. So let's move on. So the year 1, we worked on Minnesota, and in year 2, we turned our attention to the national audience. And we basically decided to continue use the same tools such as the Google site and the Canva. We also had a very similar goals in terms of what kind of features that we are looking to. And we wanted to be comprehensible, user-friendly, visually appealing, and multilingual, and equity-centered. So move on. We worked with an national organization, such as National Council of State Supervisors for Languages, NASSFL. Some of you are probably a member of that. I saw some familiar names earlier. And then we also tapped into the members that was part of a National Seals Conference course hosted by Arthur Chow. Many of you may know of him, and he is kind of a guru who connects and helps support the seal of biliteracy across the nation. So we tapped into these folks' experiences and perspectives to guide our decision on what materials to create for National Toolkit website. So we surveyed them, and then we attended meetings to ask for their input and their thoughts. So in the past, if you participated in this to provided us some feedback and input, thank you so much. Because we used those responses and what learned, and we identified needed materials. So if move on to the next slide. So you can see it from this image that these are something that we learned. So each color represents each group. So the red represents the parents, and then green represents the students, and then purple represents the educators and administrators at school. As you can see, that each group's needs are somewhat different. So we were able to identify the materials that we could replicate from Minnesota State Seals site. But then at the same time, we needed to be careful because as we mentioned earlier, each state has a different rules and then policies. So we need these materials to be general and generic enough, but then also still helpful for people to use it. The next slide, please. In the survey, we also asked which languages we could translate the materials. And then so you can see the list there. And then from the list, we decided the languages we would translate. So you can see on the right side, there are 8 languages we decided to translate materials for the National Seals Toolkit. You may notice that French ranked higher than Somali and Hmong. But we know that there are a lot more materials in French language that are available compared to less commonly taught languages such as Hmong and Somali. So French was not the language that we decided to translate the materials in. The next slide, please. Here's some additional feedback we received through survey. And then through that, 2 areas were surfaced. And then one is the area around post-secondary institutions from the lens of recognizing students who come into the colleges with the seal. So it's more like a college credit or however the college or universities may honor these seals. So one is that area. And then the second area was the employers through a lens of increasing awareness of the bilingual seal awardee holders in the business world. So next slide. So here it is. This is the first page, the landing page of the National Toolkit. You can see in addition to students, educators, families sections, we added employer sections and then higher ed sections. So the employers and higher ed sections, those 2, we did not have those 2 for the Minnesota State. So national sites has those 2 sections. So the idea was the same. Again, we developed many similar materials. Again, we needed to be careful to generalize as much as possible. But then still needed to be helpful to those who will use it. So one highlight that I want to show you from higher ed, maybe it's next slide, June. Yes, it's this chart that shows you the level of awards from each of the 50 states. And actually plus District of Columbia and then Department of Defense Education Activity, the DO, DEA, they have they're basically the part of the defense department, state of defense, and then they have schools all over the world. So they have now Seal of Biliteracy adapted. But so chart looks like this, that each state, it shows the level of awards and then how it's corresponded to the Octopus proficiency guidelines. I thought that we thought that something like that is helpful because, right, colleges are likely receiving students with seals coming from many different many different from the states. And then gold seal in Minnesota and then gold seal in Florida may not be the same thing. So, and also there's a link to the Higher Educational Institute who accept the seals maintained by Dr. Christine Davin. There's a link to that as well. The next slide, please. We also made a calculator which can be helpful for both higher ed and employers. You can choose a state and it will show you the level of awards. And then it also instantly shows you the actor for the proficiency level. And on the left side, you can see the proficiency description, basically intermediate level, like, what the person can do in the intermediate range and what the advanced level person can do, so that employers can get some ideas if they hire somebody bilingual. And then after for the proficiency guideline, I mean, not necessarily known to lots of folks, right? So those are some, and then here's another newly created resources for employers. So these flyers outline the reasons and then benefits for companies to hire bilingual workforce and encourage them to endorse the seal of biliteracy. So these two flyers are brand new. And next slide. So in year 3, this past year, we continued to revise, update, and then refine the materials on both national and then Minnesota site. Next slide. For Minnesota site, we added 5 new languages, Dari, Mandarin Chinese, Pashto, Swahili, and Ukrainian. And then next slide. Here is the information. Here's just an example, a poster and a sample prompt. These are written in Dari. And then next slide. And then we also translated letter templates in the same 12 languages. The templates are outreach letter, basically the communicating to families what this program is about, and a test results letter, so that schools can use to communicate how students did and then how that gonna equate to the seal and then what they can do for college credit type of thing. So we didn't, originally we had those letter templates only in English, and then now we added 12 languages translation. So, and then the big part in the year 3, the update we did is the social media campaign. So I'm going to hand this over to June.
All right, thanks, Ayumi. So hi, everyone. I'm Jung, and I have been working as a research assistant for our sales project since this summer. So and today we're sharing a bit about our social media campaign. And as Kendall mentioned earlier, there are gaps and challenges we continue to recognize in developing and promoting the seals of biliteracy, such as uneven implementation, language inequity, and especially resource disparities. So in response to this inequity, our team developed 2 toolkits website, right, to provide like one-stop shop for educators, administrators, and anyone who are interested in earning and supporting their sales. But we also realize that like simply having toolkits isn't enough if people they don't know about that or use them. For example, like we got a lot of feedbacks, right? Like this national toolkit is brand new to you, right? So today, and Ayumi introduced a lot about our toolkits. So to further address unequal access and make these resources more visible and easy to use, we launched our social media campaign this summer, creating, official accounts on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok to share, seal-related updates, stories, and ready-to-use materials in engaging and teacher-friendly way. So here are our official social media accounts, all under the name State Seals of Biliteracy. And since our launch in July, our posts have reached nearly like 20,000 views across platform. So which shows that people are engaging with this content and finding it useful. So we'd love to continue growing this reach. So please feel free to follow us, share our posts, or tag your school's Seals of Biliteracy celebrations. So I will wait for a few seconds here, probably like 30 seconds. So you will have the chance to scan these codes and follow us on social media. All right, yeah. So you can just, anytime, you can just type in, State Seals of Biliteracy, and I believe our account will pop up. Yeah. So here are a few examples of, the kinds of posts or contents we have been sharing through our social media accounts. Our contents include like a mix of key program information, such as what educators and students need to know about the SEALs, and two key highlights and updates. So like this one on the left side, right? You see like we post something like about how students can earn college credit and which credit accept the SEALs. So it turned out like these posts about college credit has been one of the posts that gained the most traction so far. So which really shows like how relevant and motivating like this information is for students and families. And we also feature, bilingual voices, stories, interviews, and testimonies from students, parents, and teachers who have earned or support the SEALs. And occasionally, we share lighter, fun content just to celebrate linguistic diversity in simple, joyful way. So we'd love for you to connect with us by liking, commenting, or sharing our posts. And to develop materials, on social media, like cater to educators' needs. During our 3-day CARLA Summer Institute this past summer, we ran a quick poll, small-scale quick poll to learn what teachers wanted most from our social media, our outreach and promotion resources. So the feedback was really helpful. Teachers share that they like more ready-to-use materials, especially those like clearly explain like the SEALs benefits and requirement. And just so you know, we already have many of these materials available on our Toolkits website, so do check it out. And also teacher prefer a more playful and colorful graphic design style on social media. So which is why our social media, design looks a little bit different from our website. So our website, which is more like clean and formal, right? So we simply just want to provide like more options for teachers and educators. So you can choose whatever works best for you and your audience. And finally, most teachers said like they like a centralized way to access these social media promotion materials. So ideally all organized on our National Toolkit website. So based on that feedback, we created a new social media tools section on our National Toolkit website. So everything we share on social media is now collected and organized here. So you can just easily find, download, and use these materials. So if you follow us on our social medias, and you can share any post directly with one click, right? It's super quick and ready to use. And if you like to customize the materials, for example, by adding your school or district logo, we have also included editable links so you can make a copy and modify the templates right in Canva. So on the next slide, I will show you like exactly how that works, how you can access the posts you like on this page and download or customize for your own use. So here is what it looks like in practice. And I believe Kendall has dropped like the link to the social media tours web page. Yeah. So for example, here on this web page, if you would like to use these State Seals of Biliteracy Q&A flyer, you can just simply click on it from our webpage and the detailed content will pop up, right? So here is the detailed flyer we developed for this poster, this content. So we got like 6 commonly asked questions teachers or families have about State Seals of Biliteracy. And also at the bottom, you will see 2 links. One is to download the PDF version and another to edit in Canva if you want to make changes or customize it. So just a quick note, we have had a few cases before, where people accidentally edited our original Canva template. So, you can imagine like the chaos. So now we edit the assets. So we only share like the viewer assets. It's view only. So what you will need to do is to make a copy into your own Canva account before making any changes. Yeah. And we also provide like a detailed step-by-step guide on our website. Yeah. So now I have talked a lot, shared a lot of what we have done with our social media campaign. And now let's spend a few minutes together exploring our National Toolkit website, especially the new social media tools section. So you can click the link drop in the chat, yeah, and visit the page shown here to take a quick look around. So yeah, and just feel free to explore, both our social media flyer, videos, and other resources on the site. And as you browse, just tell us, like what's your favorite, which flyer or infographics do you think would be effective in promoting the sales in your context or school? How you might use these materials. So just drop your choice, comments, or feedbacks in the chat. Yeah. And you can just type the title, like of your favorite flyer, or quick note like college credit one is super helpful like this. Yeah. I will probably give you 2 minutes, so you have plenty of time to exploring, browsing, and I will monitor like the chat, yeah, just to see like. Or you can just like drop a link of a certain like flyers or infographics, so like everybody can access it easily. Yeah. So either way, yeah. Oh, thanks for the feedback, Annie. Yeah, we will. Yeah, take care of it after the talk. Yeah, just double check like those. Yeah, those links sometimes they are funky. Yeah. Yeah, I see some of you already exploring the site and love seeing this coming in. Yeah, keep on coming. Yeah, I see lots of you mention like the benefit of biliteracy. Yeah, digital flyer. Oh yeah, access to this digital flyer and in different languages, right? What do you need to know? Yeah. Yeah, I got a lot of thumbs up for the Seals of Biliteracy. What do I need to know? Yeah, those general flyers about the benefits. Yeah, benefits of biliteracy. Are you ready? Yes. So comment from Benjamin, really like the "Are you ready" poster. Yeah. Like most of my students feel like they aren't proficient enough to even bother taking the test. Yeah, so this poster would be really helpful. Yeah, and also I received comments from Nelson's talking about, yeah. Okay. Yeah, so thank you for all these such great insight, and feel free to keep commenting as we move on, because we're just keeping an eye on the time, right? So, and we will definitely take this comment into account as we keep building new content. So please follow us on social media and stay tuned for more updates. And so before we wrap up, we'd really love to hear your feedback. So if you have any immediate thoughts or suggestions, you can scan either of these QR codes. So the one is for Minnesota Toolkit's website. The other is for the State Seals of Biliteracy, the national one. So you can also find, this feedback form anytime on our website under About Us or under or our team session. Yeah. And we truly value your input. It helps us improve the content, design, and the resources to better support educators and students across the country. So, and now I will hand it back to Kendall, who will share some upcoming opportunities and take any questions. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, June. All of that work was June's over the summer. She had some high school interns who collaborated with her, but that's largely all her design skills. So please we love the positive feedback, but we're happy to hear negative feedback or things that don't work or something you'd like to see. We're also I'm thinking about a lot of our site is multilingual, including the test prompts and test descriptor. We have a lot of multilingual content, but our social media tools right now are mostly English. So we'd love to think about building those out and possibly partnering with you. I want to save some time for questions, so I just want to wrap up with two quick announcements and invitations. We will be hosting a workshop on February 28th. That's a Saturday, so we'll be doing that in the late afternoon. And this is really aimed, maybe not at you, maybe at you, but we're really focusing on community-based heritage language instructors and maybe ESL teachers. And our focus here is on folks who are really new to ACTFL standards, since that is such an important piece of earning the seal. And so we hope you will consider attending that if it works for you or is appropriate. And more broadly, we are excited that we will be offering another Summer Institute in June, and that will be focusing on helping participants to grow their expertise and promoting the SEALS program, administering assessments, and recognizing their accomplishments. So that will drop, I believe, in January. Registration will drop in January. I think there'll be further information next month. So please keep that in mind. We'd love to have you. So it is now 12:46. I am happy to take comments or questions, and I'm sure Ayumi and June also would be happy to hear from all of you, comments, questions, and Kate's going to help moderate the chat. So thank you all for attending, and it's been fun to share what we've been up to. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Kendall, Ayumi, and June. Every time I see you present on this project, I am so impressed with how much you've accomplished in such a short time. And that I've talked to many people about the toolkit who say wonderful things about it. So congratulations on all of your work. So far, we don't have any questions in the chat, but I have a couple of questions. And my first question is, what's next? Like, is this the end of the project? Are you thinking about doing something more with it? I realize that this is the end of the project in terms of your obligation to CARLA, but have you talked about the future at all?
Yeah, I mean, we still have some time on the clock. So we are thinking about which 2, 3, 4, 5 languages we might be able to add to the national site. June's been doing some research on what languages are big numerically and then underrepresented. And we're thinking about Haitian Creole, for example, and a few others that kind of have an equity component to it and are less widely taught, but we know there's large numbers of speakers. We want to grow the social media piece. June's done an amazing job, but we think there's more to do, in particular in developing multilingual materials that are appealing to young people. And then we are always thinking about the employer piece. We have built that out, but we would like to do more to link formally to LinkedIn and Job Monster and collaborate with them on getting a bilingual seal like on their site, so it is a little more formalized and visible in the places where people are looking for jobs and posting jobs. Ayumi, June, if there's other stuff that's on our to-do list that I missed, feel free to add.
So my other question is about sort of the post-secondary connection. And I know that this is something that Kristen talked about when she gave a talk at CARLA a couple of weeks ago. And there was a question earlier in the chat from Katrine about credits being awarded at the secondary level and then transferring to post-secondary level. But I'm guessing that there are a lot of post-secondary folks in the audience today, and I'm wondering if you have any tips or advice for how they might have their institutions consider adopting the seals in recognition of fulfilling a language requirement or retro credits, things like that. That's something that you all helped us with here at the University of Minnesota, but maybe you have some tips or suggestions about that.
Yeah. Ayumi, you want to start with that one? I know you've worked in this space a little too.
Is the question about the post-secondary?
Yeah, like how do we get more institutions to recognize the seals and value them and sort of use them as a pathway to further language study at the university level?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think I'm very excited about some efforts that are being done at the UofM too. In Minnesota, though, technically, the Minnesota State Colleges, Universities award the credit, and the challenge is that it's more about challenge. I think challenge is about the education, like awareness, increasing in awareness, because I still get questions or inquiry from families and students who are either transferring to Minnesota State system or enrolling to Minnesota State system, and advisors that they work with, they really don't know about the SIP. So it's just challenging that way. I've been like trying to move a needle on it for many, many years, but not super successfully. But I don't know. So anybody here in the audience may have some
Yeah.
experience or tips.
I'm sure there's expertise in the audience, and I would add to what Ayumi said that Minnesota is relatively lucky in that credit in our state system is written into the legislation. That is relatively rare across the US. So we already have a leg up, and even here it can be challenging for students to find the right person to give the form to. More broadly to Kate's question, I think there is work to be done in convincing language departments who, of course, in higher ed are under stress and a lot of pressure, financial and otherwise. So it's understandable they're kind of defensive, right? Because it can feel like, oh my gosh, this is going to take away credit hours and enrollments. I think there is an argument to be made that this can lead to more minors, more double majors, students who are enrolling in advanced classes, and be an efficient way of promoting enrollment, not just in the basic courses, but students who are going to sign on to do more advanced coursework, which is what, of course, all of us are hoping for, and that students can achieve those higher levels of bilingualism. It's a dance. And it, even at the U of M, where we had me, Ayumi, Kate, lots and lots of allies, it took years and years of meetings. So it's not like flipping a switch. It is about kind of building deep relationships and having lots of conversations around the benefit of the seal and how we can give credit for prior learning, however that's framed in that higher institution. I would also argue that it's an equity issue. We are very concerned, I think, in every higher ed institution about having students stay, come, right, from all different backgrounds and then not drop out. So this can be a powerful message that we value students from a wide range of backgrounds. We welcome them here and we see the credit and the learning and the expertise that they have, and it's formally recognized.
Yeah, there's a couple of comments in the chat related to this question. So Sandra, for instance, said, I think the community doesn't really understand what the Seal of Biliteracy is or what it's for. And I think that that's probably true in post-secondary language departments. And I hope I'm not speaking out of turn by saying that there can be a lot of gatekeeping in those departments because once students get outside of the lower level courses, they need to be able to work with literary texts and film and things like that. And there's, I think, maybe an unfounded fear that students aren't prepared to do that if they have the seal. And so it would be great for all of us in the room who are in that environment to kind of really promote that this is about biliteracy. It's not just about having proficiency in another language, but it's that biliteracy is an important part of it. I think that that's really a good argument. And then the recruitment piece, of course, I think is really important too. And somebody else in the chat said, one of our universities awards credits for the seal, but only if a student takes a higher level world language course with them. So they get retroactive credits. And so that's a great recruitment strategy, right, to honoring the seal and sort of drawing students in the door to get a minor or a major.
That's part of the
Um,
reason, I'm sorry to talk over you.
no,
That's
I'm
part of the
done. I'm
reason
done.
we built up that higher ed piece, recognizing that admissions people don't necessarily understand that these seals are not given on the basis of, say, GPA or, they are rigorous nationally normed tests, right?
Exactly.
Much like the AP assessment. So that's one piece. I do think there's kind of a more subtle, tricky issue that has come up here at the U and is real, which is this introduces another potential level of equity concerns because most students don't have access to the seal, right? If it's only 3, 4, 5, 6% of students who have the option of earning the seal, that is, I think, a real challenge in addition to the ones outlined. So there needs to be ways of taking that into effect. And there are, global seals. There are, other mechanisms for earning seals that can help address that.
Yeah, and in fact, I think one of the chapters in that volume that just came out on the seals of biliteracy in higher education one of their recruitment strategies was to have students come to campus during orientation and take a test that awards them the bilingual seal, and then they use that as sort of a pathway to get students to consider taking more language classes at the university. So I thought that was kind of an interesting strategy.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a global seal if you're interested in Googling that. Different website, different system. That's
yep,
for
yep, yep.
anybody 6 to 80 can do that.
There aren't any additional questions, but there is a comment in the chat just about looking forward to seeing more connections with employers that you mentioned, that this is kind of an area of need. Um, yeah, so since there are no further questions, I think we can go ahead and wrap up. I want to once again thank our presenters for all of their wonderful work and for sharing all of these materials and making them so accessible to people. And I want to thank all of you in the audience for being here today and for choosing professional development through CARLA. We hope that we will see you at a presentation or a workshop in the future. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.